When Love Was Never Mine. Previous episodes are available in playlist, a link is given in the video description. Episode 4. By a twist of fate, Olivia found herself in Ethan's sight at her most discomfited moments. It turned out that the Atkinses and the Carltons were family friends. The Carltons invited the Atkinses to hold shares in the Oakland hospital. Calvin was helping Marina to scout for talents. And that was how everyone ended up at the event. However, the guests were surprised that Ethan tagged along as well. His presence took the event to the next level. And the guests flocked up to greet him. Calvin did not abandon Olivia even after Ethan showed up. He handed her some napkins, and their hands touched in a moment of frenzy. It was warm indoors. So Olivia unbuttoned her down jacket to reveal a knitted white dress underneath. It wasn't her intention to pick that particular dress, because it accentuated her figure. Lifting her head, she exposed her smooth nape. She looked lovely. Ethan noticed the absence of the mark on her neck, symbolizing their fated love. One day, he would put their memories behind him. Still, Ethan realized that he was not as cool as he thought when Calvin held Olivia's wrist. And he stared intently at the motion. Calvin immediately sensed his hostile gaze and looked up. But he only found Callista greeting Ethan. Confused, Calvin thought Ethan's hostility was an illusion. He greeted Ethan with grace. "Mr. Miller, we were not expecting you. It's our honor to have you here. Marina, this is the gifted student that I mentioned, Olivia Fordham. Olivia, you should know Mr. Miller by now. And this is Mr. Miller's." Olivia shed her meekness and put on a thinly veiled hostility. "I know. That's Mr. Miller's fiancé." She had thought that she'd never cross paths with Ethan. But it didn't take them long to run into each other. Calvin smacked his head and chuckled. "Oh, this is embarrassing. Every guest of mine must have known Mr. Miller and Ms. Carlton from all that media coverage on their engagement. I suppose everyone has heard about Mr. Miller's fiancé. But does anyone know who his ex-wife is?" With a laugh like silver bells, Everly approached the group. She had successfully sold off one of her properties just now. She was a cheerful and carefree spirit and was pretty. She tied her pink hair into a bun and strutted over in her stilettos. However, her pointed question was a rude shock to the guests around them. "Everly, don't run your mouth. Mr. Miller doesn't have an ex-wife. Right? He's smitten with Ms. Carlton." Everly was determined to even the score on Olivia's behalf. So she fearlessly walked up to Ethan and hissed, "They said you are smitten with Ms. Carlton. How should we describe what you've done to your ex-wife, then? Walking out on her." Ethan shut her up. "She's not worthy of mention." With that, he made his way around Everly and Olivia, shocking the guests with his admission. However, he made it obvious that he wanted to drop the topic. Any sensible guest would tiptoe around it, unlike Everly. Surrounded by starstruck guests, he glided into the venue. Nobody except for Everly noticed that Olivia was shaking indignantly. Olivia had not expected Ethan to dismiss their past relationship with such heartlessness. She realized that her precious memories were not worthy of a mention for him and clenched her fists. Meanwhile, Everly seemed apologetic for her botched attempt at humiliating Marina. It backfired when Ethan shut her down. She also knew that in Olivia and Ethan's divorce agreement, they agreed to keep their past relationship a secret. Liv, are you feeling unwell? I'll send you home. Everly was reluctant to suggest Olivia go home. But Ethan made it clear that he would side with Marina. Olivia lost the competition when Ethan sided with Marina. With each word he said, he inflicted pain on Olivia. Olivia was too fragile at that moment to endure more hurt. Shockingly, Olivia, who had been looking for an escape, chose to stay. She instructed Everly, "Didn't you bring a change of clothes? Come with me to the restroom. I'll change my outfit. It's rude to leave when the event hasn't started, don't you think?" Everly was pleasantly surprised by Olivia's courage to stand up to Ethan. On their way to the restroom, she kept grumbling, "Did you see Ethan Miller's wretched look just now? I almost punched him and tore him into pieces. He's the worst scumbag." Olivia smiled helplessly. "Oh, Everly. Liv, are you sure you want to stay? He'll be acting all lovey-dovey with his mistress. He'll make you feel terrible because you still have feelings for him. You were the one who said that I would get over it one day, not to mention that the divorce was all his fault in the first place. Why should I hide away?" Olivia took the bag with the new dress and entered a cubicle. "Everly, you're right. Even if I only had a day left on Earth, I'd live for myself." She was startled by the dress that Everly brought along. It was bright red and revealing, but she looked beautiful in it. Everly swallowed hard when she saw her bestie in that red dress. "Wow, boob size does matter. That dress looks amazing on you." She helped Olivia to draw a red lip. Only Olivia could exude grace in that dress, which might look gaudy on other women otherwise. The phrase pure seduction seemed to be created just for her. "Let's go." Olivia marched into the venue in her heels. She looked even more charming and smart in her pixie cut. As expected, she became the center of attention when she showed up, making Callista scoff in jealousy. "That's too showy." Soon, Olivia heard a familiar and calm voice around her. "Olivia." She found Keith standing beside Calvin. She was surprised to see him there, but it made sense for Calvin to invite him because he came from a family of doctors, just like Calvin. Keith waved at her. "Over here." Keith must have greeted her to save her from the awkward social situation. She'd only embarrass Keith if she turned him down. Under Ethan's death stare, she calmly approached Keith and took a seat beside him. They had not seen each other for a while, and he felt relieved upon seeing her healthy appearance. When most guests were busy groveling to Ethan, Keith gave Olivia his full attention and piled some nutritious foods on her plate. She was too busy eating to notice Ethan staring at her. Calvin certainly picked up the odd change in Keith's behavior. "Keith, I've never seen you so focused on a woman. Are you and Olivia?" One of the classmates, Bailey Blanchard, mumbled with a mouthful of food. "I heard Olivia took a leave from school to get married. Is she married to Keith?" Marina belatedly realized that she had walked into Everly's trap. She didn't want to out herself as the mistress, for that'd reveal Olivia's identity as Ethan's ex-wife. She would never do that. So, she quietened and collected herself. Glaring at Everly, she said, "I'm not. It's indecent to discuss topics like cheating at a formal event." But Everly wasn't deterred. In fact, she was emboldened. The mistress is the indecent woman for sleeping with a married man. I have nothing to fear. But Miss Carlton, you seem very affected by the discussion. Were you someone's mistress too? Miss Hilton, Ethan hissed at Everly with a menacing gleam in his eyes. She promptly behaved. Oh, right. With a rich husband like you, Miss Carlton doesn't have to climb into anyone's bed at all. If anything, she'll be getting into your bed all the time. Even the dumbest person could tell that Everly was taking a jab at Marina. However, only Calvin picked up a minute detail. How did a notable figure like Ethan Miller come to know Everly's last name? On the other hand, Olivia gaped at Everly's impudence. She wasn't as daring as her best friend, who had the guts to jab at Ethan. Knowing Ethan, he wouldn't allow anyone to cause trouble for him. Sensing the danger, she quickly steered the topic of conversation. Anyway, it's all in the past. My late husband will not come back to life. So, please don't ask me for more details. A cheater is not worthy of discussion. Since she had set things straight, it'd be rude for anyone to press on. Everly almost clapped at Olivia's perfect comeback. Bailey suddenly wondered aloud, does this mean Olivia's single? Is Keith pursuing her? She was not the sharpest tool in the shed. They narrowly avoided a situation, only to be confronted with a new problem. The socially inept Bailey had not changed at all. Still, Olivia wouldn't mind if Ethan got dragged into the discussion. She never expected the event to turn into a huge gossip party about her personal life. Everyone was interested in her relationship. She was once the campus belle who had numerous suitors. When she gave up everything and left school, her classmates couldn't help but wonder about the man whom she made the sacrifice for. Marina kept her anger under control and stole a look at Ethan. He was getting harder to read by the day. He seemed to have given up on Olivia, but he occasionally showed a lingering affection for that woman. Ethan carelessly picked up a slice of steak. He ate it as though the conversations were none of his business. Olivia was about to deny it when Keith took over. It's not surprising for a lovely lady like Olivia to attract a bunch of admirers. If I have a chance to date her, I'll cherish her and never hurt her. It's her ex-husband's loss. Ethan froze upon hearing that. Similarly, Olivia was shocked by Keith's statement. She had warned Keith to stay out of her business. But instead of heeding her advice, he issued a subtle challenge in front of Ethan. Keith, she looked panicked. There was no way she could explain her way out. Keith seemed to have read her mind. He gave her an endearing look. Olivia, now that you're single, may I ask you out? Marina belatedly realized that she had walked into Everly's trap. She didn't want to out herself as the mistress, for that'd reveal Olivia's identity as Ethan's ex-wife. She would never do that. So, she quietened and collected herself. Glaring at Everly, she said, I'm not. It's indecent to discuss topics like cheating at a formal event. But Everly wasn't deterred. In fact, she was emboldened. The mistress is the indecent woman for sleeping with a married man. I have nothing to fear. But Miss Carlton, you seem very affected by the discussion. Were you someone's mistress too? Miss Hilton, Ethan hissed at Everly with a menacing gleam in his eyes. she promptly behaved. Oh, right. With a rich husband like you, Ms. Carlton doesn't have to climb into anyone's bed at all. If anything, she'll be getting into your bed all the time. Even the dumbest person could tell that Everly was taking a jab at Marina. However, only Calvin picked up a minute detail. How did a notable figure like Ethan Miller come to know Everly's last name? On the other hand, Olivia gaped at Everly's impudence. She wasn't as daring as her best friend, who had the guts to jab at Ethan. Knowing Ethan, he wouldn't allow anyone to cause trouble for him. Sensing the danger, she quickly steered the topic of conversation. Anyway, it's all in the past. My late husband will not come back to life. So, please don't ask me for more details. A cheater is not worthy of discussion. Since she had set things straight, it'd be rude for anyone to press on. Everly almost clapped at Olivia's perfect comeback. Bailey suddenly wondered aloud, does this mean Olivia's single? Is Keith pursuing her? She was not the sharpest tool in the shed. They narrowly avoided a situation, only to be confronted with a new problem. The socially inept Bailey had not changed at all. Still, Olivia wouldn't mind if Ethan got dragged into the discussion. She never expected the event to turn into a huge gossip party about her personal life. Everyone was interested in her relationship. She was once the campus belle who had numerous suitors. When she gave up everything and left school, her classmates couldn't help but wonder about the man whom she made the sacrifice for. Marina kept her anger under control and stole a look at Ethan. He was getting harder to read by the day. He seemed to have given up on Olivia, but he occasionally showed a lingering affection for that woman. Ethan carelessly picked up a slice of steak. He ate it as though the conversations were none of his business. Olivia was about to deny it when Keith took over. It's not surprising for a lovely lady like Olivia to attract a bunch of admirers. If I have a chance to date her, I'll cherish her and never hurt her. It's her ex-husband's loss. Ethan froze upon hearing that. Similarly, Olivia was shocked by Keith's statement. She had warned Keith to stay out of her business. But instead of heeding her advice, he issued a subtle challenge in front of Ethan. Keith, she looked panicked. There was no way she could explain her way out. Keith seemed to have read her mind. He gave her an endearing look. Olivia, now that you're single, may I ask you out? Keith's declaration of war made Olivia nervous. She knew Ethan was possessive, even after the divorce. He once said that he would never want to see her happy. However, she'd only embarrass Keith in front of everyone if she rejected his advance. She found herself between a rock and a hard place. Everly helped her out with a grin. She said to Keith, "Of course you can. The easiest way to forget an ex is to get a new date. Keith, you're a great guy. Take your time and get to know each other. I really hope Olivia meets someone decent to help her heal. You know, she has been badly hurt." Everly made it sound as if Olivia and Keith were a thing. Olivia hurriedly stopped her friend. Eve. Blinded by revenge, Everly did not heed Olivia's warning. Why are you acting all shy? Do you really plan to die alone after the divorce? Keith is different from that jerk. Keith, are you free these days? I'm visiting Maher town with Liv, but I'm a little concerned about our safety. It's my honor to offer you protection. Keith stared at Olivia longingly. Everly stole a look at Ethan and felt satisfied after seeing his sour face. Ethan did not say a word, using only his hostility to remind them of his presence. Calvin jumped in and changed the topic. As Olivia's former classmate, I'm glad she found her happiness. It's an honor to meet Mr. Miller in person too. I shall make a toast to Mr. Miller and Marina. Here's to a long and happy marriage. His good wishes immediately cheered Marina up. She was about to drink when she noticed Ethan did not raise his glass. Given his social status, he refused to entertain everyone who made a toast to him. Marina awkwardly explained that Ethan refrained from drinking for health reasons. But everyone knew he was putting on airs. Nobody urged him to drink, but he went around the room with Marina to greet the guests out of respect. Callista, who never saw eye to eye with Olivia, was unhappy at all the attention on Olivia. She reminded Olivia with a disgusted face, "Hey, don't tell me you're waiting for Ethan to approach your table just because you're the high and mighty Miss Fordham. What are you standing there for? You should go up to Mr. and Mrs. Miller instead." The mention of Mrs. Miller always caught Olivia off guard. She stared blankly at the new couple, who seemed to love dressing up in monochrome couple outfits. He was dressed in black, and she was in white. They looked great together when she was still with Ethan. He never brought her to events or social gatherings. She once confronted him about it, to which he claimed that he wanted to keep her hidden for her safety. That left her wondering if he had made a lot of enemies. But she wasn't too bothered by the lack of acknowledgement as long as he loved her. Thinking back, she was naive to have believed in his stupid excuse. If he truly loved her, he would have shown her off to everyone. Perhaps, he had been biding his time for Marina. All the talk of vendetta could have been an excuse to justify his extramarital affair. At that moment, Ethan was so close yet so distant from her. Suddenly, he was reduced to nothing more than a stranger. The memories she cherished seemed to have faded. It was male nature to seek as many companions as possible. How could she have foolishly believed she was lucky enough to stumble upon a faithful partner? Olivia reached out to the wine bottle. "You're right. I should raise a glass to them." Almost instantly, Keith and Everly stopped her and warned her sternly, "No. You can't drink." She looked at Everly pleadingly. "I'll only take a sip." "It's fine." Everly let go of Olivia's hands when she read the determination in her friend's eyes. Olivia poured herself a glass of red wine and made her way to the couple while Keith looked on with hesitation. With a smile, she said, "Mr. Miller, Miss Carlton, I wish you a happy marriage. I'll drink this toast whether you like it or not. Please consider this my congratulations in advance. I will not attend your engagement party." Then, she downed the glass of wine like the guest before her without looking at Ethan and Marina. Ethan knew she was a lightweight who'd get tipsy from a glass of wine. Marina stood up with her glass and beamed. "Ethan and I will be happy. Thanks for your blessing." In what seemed to be a competition, she poured herself a full glass of wine and downed it like Olivia. "Enough!" Two male voices echoed in the room. Ethan and Keith had to put a stop to the madness. Keith grabbed the half-empty glass from Olivia and told Ethan, "For the sake of her health, I'll drink on her behalf." Ethan, who had been silent, finally broke into an amused smile. "Who are you to her? What right do you have to drink on her behalf? The guests at the table thought that was Ethan's pet peeve, hence the hostility. They shot awkward looks at Keith, who calmly replied, "That's none of your business, Mr. Miller." Ethan finally looked at Keith, who was standing over him. Despite being seated, Ethan seemed authoritative with his quiet and serious attitude. His emotionless glance exerted pressure on whomever he lay his eyes on. The guests watched on as Ethan chuckled and lifted a glass of wine. He said, amused, "Finally, someone with a spine from the Rogers family." Everyone was left confused because Ethan's chilling smile contradicted his compliment. He followed up with, "I wonder if you'll survive this winter." He finally made his threat clear. Ethan was as ruthless and fickle as the rumors painted him. He was a man who'd be outraged at the sight of Keith drinking on behalf of a lady and would resort to bankrupting Keith's family. As one of the scions in Alden Vine, Keith was widely seen as a respected heir and doctor. Only Ethan had the power to step over him due to the Millers' influence. The Millers were the top elites in this city, but Ethan kept a low profile. He rarely made a move against anyone, but if he ever did, he made sure to destroy his target. Calvin took Ethan's threat seriously and quickly jumped in to mediate. "Mr. Miller, please calm down. Dr. Rogers was only being nice to Olivia." Rubbing the wine glass with his fingertips, Ethan snickered. "Keith Rogers, who are you to drink on her behalf? You have a chance to return to your seat. If you do, I'll let this slip." Marina stared at Ethan's side profile throughout the confrontation. Ethan did not like publicizing his relationship with Olivia, especially after the divorce. However, she noted that Ethan was triggered by Keith's act of drinking on Olivia's behalf. She turned her resentful gaze to Olivia when she realized divorce was not enough. It turned out that Olivia still had a place in Ethan's heart. Meanwhile, Keith was stuck in an awkward situation. A heavy silence hung in the air, none of the guests dared to make a move that might provoke Ethan. Keith knew that Ethan wanted to force him to give up on Olivia. Any man would have buckled under Ethan's threat, but little did Ethan know that Keith had fallen too hard for Olivia. It was love at first sight. She was a wholly different person when they were younger. But he was too occupied with college and studying abroad to make the relationship happen. When he returned to the country, he learned that she had quit school to get married. He was dismayed at the shell of the person she had become, like a tree withering from neglect. He waited a long time until her divorce. He was always grateful for the time he spent with her, no matter how short. For the first time, the rule-abiding man followed his heart and gave his all for love. Keith, ignoring the threat, stared determinedly at Ethan. "It's not your place to comment on that. You do know that your fiancé is right beside you, don't you? You should focus on her. No matter what Olivia's decision is, I will protect her well. I won't hurt her the way her ex-husband did." With that, he downed the contents in Olivia's glass and slammed it on the table. He took her hand and muttered, "It's getting late, so I'll send Olivia home. I shall excuse myself since you'll be talking business." Everly almost clapped at Keith's coolness. Yet Olivia seemed troubled. She knew that Keith was adding fuel to the fire, and if she went with him, Ethan would destroy the Rogers family. She planned to stay, but he hauled her away. Worried, she looked at him. Keith, you, he gave her a gentle look and placed a finger on his lips. She left with him without glancing at Ethan's expression. She could still picture his displeasure. Panicked, she lectured Keith, "You shouldn't have gone against him openly. He's a tough nut. Remember? You were lucky to have escaped the car crash unhurt. Keith, you knew my predicament. I can't possibly love." He took her other hand and glanced at her tenderly. "Olivia, I know. But I'm an adult. I know what I'm doing. Ethan can be volatile, but he's not tyrannical. If he's angry at me, he will come at me, but he will leave my family out of it. I thought through the consequences before I asked you out." Frowning, she wanted to explain that Ethan was different from what everyone thought of him. At least, in the past, Ethan would go mad if anyone laid a finger on her. Once, a senior at school cornered her in an alley and confessed to her. After she rejected him, he started getting handsy around her. The next day, she heard that the senior had drunkenly fallen off a building in a freak accident and died horribly. The deceased's family blamed it on Olivia, making a scene at the school and slapping her across the face. Soon, their residence went up in flames a few days later, and the entire family perished. She had thought it was a terrible coincidence until she found Ethan scattering white powder in his garden. She went up to take a better look and was shocked to learn that those were ashes. The family of that senior was not only dead but reduced to ashes. Marina stared at Ethan's side profile throughout the confrontation. Ethan did not like publicizing his relationship with Olivia, especially after the divorce. However, she noted that Ethan was triggered by Keith's act of drinking on Olivia's behalf. She turned her resentful gaze to Olivia when she realized divorce was not enough. It turned out that Olivia still had a place in Ethan's heart. Meanwhile, Keith was stuck in an awkward situation. A heavy silence hung in the air. None of the guests dared to make a move that might provoke Ethan. Keith knew that Ethan wanted to force him to give up on Olivia. Any man would have buckled under Ethan's threat, but little did Ethan know that Keith had fallen too hard for Olivia. It was love at first sight. She was a wholly different person when they were younger. But he was too occupied with college and studying abroad to make the relationship happen. When he returned to the country, he learned that she had quit school to get married. He was dismayed at the shell of the person she had become, like a tree withering from neglect. He waited a long time until her divorce. He was always grateful for the time he spent with her, no matter how short. For the first time, the rule-abiding man followed his heart and gave his all for love. Keith, ignoring the threat, stared determinedly at Ethan. "It's not your place to comment on that. You do know that your fiancé is right beside you, don't you? You should focus on her. No matter what Olivia's decision is, I will protect her well. I won't hurt her the way her ex-husband did." With that, he downed the contents in Olivia's glass and slammed it on the table. He took her hand and muttered, "It's getting late, so I'll send Olivia home. I shall excuse myself since you'll be talking business." Everly almost clapped at Keith's coolness. Yet Olivia seemed troubled. She knew that Keith was adding fuel to the fire, and if she went with him, Ethan would destroy the Rogers family. She planned to stay, but he hauled her away. Worried, she looked at him. "Keith, you he gave her a gentle look and placed a finger on his lips. She left with him without glancing at Ethan's expression. She could still picture his displeasure. Panicked, she lectured Keith, "You shouldn't have gone against him openly. He's a tough nut. Remember? You were lucky to have escaped the car crash unhurt. Keith, you knew my predicament. I can't possibly love." He took her other hand and glanced at her tenderly. "Olivia, I know. But I'm an adult. I know what I'm doing. Ethan can be volatile, but he's not tyrannical. If he's angry at me, he will come at me, but he will leave my family out of it. I thought through the consequences before I asked you out." Frowning, she wanted to explain that Ethan was different from what everyone thought of him. At least, in the past, Ethan would go mad if anyone laid a finger on her. Once, a senior at school cornered her in an alley and confessed to her. After she rejected him, he started getting handsy around her. The next day, she heard that the senior had drunkenly fallen off a building in a freak accident and died horribly. The deceased's family blamed it on Olivia, making a scene at the school and slapping her across the face. Soon, their residence went up in flames a few days later, and the entire family perished. She had thought it was a terrible coincidence until she found Ethan scattering white powder in his garden. She went up to take a better look and was shocked to learn that those were ashes. The family of that senior was not only dead but reduced to ashes. Olivia freed herself from Ethan's grip after Keith left. She replied flatly, "Oh, I'm doing just fine." After a few days of rest and recuperation, her complexion looked healthier, a huge contrast to her previous sickly self. He mumbled under his breath, "Right. You've always been as fit as a fiddle." She secretly snickered at him but did not attempt to add any explanation. Taking his jacket off, she said, "Mr. Miller, don't worry. I will stick to the terms of our agreement. I shall not remarry." Ethan had poured his heart into drafting their divorce agreement. Even though he gave her wealth, he destroyed her future by adding a clause to the agreement. It prohibited her from remarrying. If she ever did, she would need to pay him 10 times the settlement he provided her, which would stand at 10 billion. Still, she signed the agreement without flinching because her days were numbered anyway. The alcohol in her stomach made her sick. Attacked relentlessly by the sharp pangs of pain, she held it in and attempted to leave. But he held her wrist where Keith had previously grasped. She grimaced. "Mr. Miller, your fiancé is still waiting for you. Do you really want the guests to find out that I'm your ex-wife?" He ignored her words and growled quietly, "It's dirty here. You need to clean it." Somehow, Ethan felt like the sick one between them. Why did his possessiveness skyrocket after the divorce? He was acting like a psycho. He dragged her to the elevator. She wanted to argue with him, but the elevator stopped on the 5th floor. A bunch of drunkards staggered in. Frowning, he took a step back and forced her into a corner. This formed a protective wall that separated her from the drunks. She stared at his back in his pressed suit and the back of his head. His hair was styled immaculately. He might be a disciplined and meticulous person, but he could also be wild and extreme at times. She feared the contradiction that was him. At that time, she felt the pain growing in her stomach. Every part of her body was screaming in pain. and she badly wanted to find a space where she could gasp for breath. But she was stuck in an elevator with 4 reflective walls. She was also wearing a pair of stilettos and standing right behind her ex-husband. Even doubling over would seem like an admission of defeat. His broad shoulders were within reach. She had once leaned on his shoulders for comfort, but it was now a place that was out of bounds for her. She focused on counting the floors in the elevator. After an eternity, she finally reached their destination. The hotel was one of the many properties under the Miller Group, whose business spanned multiple industries. He stole a glance at her when he keyed in the passcode. It was the same code as his safe, a combination of numbers that was related to her. Before she could figure out his intention, she felt a force dragging her into the room. He threw the jacket aside and led her into the bathroom. Holding in the pain, she looked at him. "Mr. Miller, we are divorced. I do not need to fulfill my duty as your trophy wife anymore. I'll leave now." He had pressed on the knob of the shower, and she shivered as the icy water poured all over her. She roared, "Ethan Miller!" He clasped her face underneath the shower and stared at her. "Liv, didn't I tell you before not to let any man touch you?" The cold touch of Ethan's fingertips traveled down her cheek like a serpent. It didn't matter what they were fighting over, for he was in one of his episodes again. When they first dated, he wanted her to promise him 3 things: no cheating, no touching other men, and no leaving. She saw hints of his extreme possessiveness from the beginning. After all, he had killed off a family and turned them into ashes just because they slapped her. He'd also be cross when she shined at school. Once, she fell during sports day, and a member of the organizing committee had to carry her to the health center on his back. It was that night she witnessed Ethan's dark side as he ordered her to wash herself clean. Despite her explanations, he forced her to stand under the shower through the night. Despite his craziness, she was hopelessly in love with him. For him, she took an academic leave to keep herself out of the public eye. She didn't expect his madness to worsen after the divorce. Although the side effects from chemo went away, she still struggled with stomach pain. The room didn't have heating. And after the cold shower, she felt nothing but excruciating pain. "Turn it off. I feel cold." "Ethan Miller, it's cold." He pushed her body against the cold tiles and flashed her a chilling smile. "Liv, would it help if I warm you up with a hug?" Trembling, she reached out to turn off the shower. But he spotted it fast and held her arms over her head. The curves of her body looked perfect under the cascading water. He was similarly attractive. He pressed his warm body against hers in a flirtatious move. He moved his head and whispered into her ear, "Liv, you can only be mine even after the divorce. Have you forgotten about it? Let me go. I told you nothing happened between me and Keith." She kept her temper under control because she didn't want to push his buttons. He smirked. "Why did you move into his apartment, then? Liv, did you really think that the Rogers could back you up after leaving the Millers? Why don't we make a bet on how long the Rogers could hold out?" Ethan had made a dubious claim, confusing her apartment as Keith's. But she didn't have time to go into the details. She banged her left fist against him to express his anger. She knew that it was useless but still better than not fighting back at all. "Ethan, you were the one who cheated and asked for a divorce. And you are the one who's getting engaged. Please ask your attorney for the proper definition of divorce if you're confused. What right do you have to control me? She confronted him with a teary voice. Are you a tyrant or something? If you decided to leave my life, why did you barge in as you wish? If this is your new idea of torture, I'd rather be dead. He kissed away her tears and answered coldly, Liv, I gave you a chance, but you squandered it. Divorce is only a separation on legal terms. You will live under my control for the rest of your life. She suddenly recalled that, after that night of standing under the shower, he had once asked her if she wanted to leave. He was a beast that would hurt her. And he was willing to send her away to safety before he spiraled out of control. Do you remember what you said? You hugged me and said that we'd be together in sickness and health. You said you wouldn't abandon me unless death parts us. Olivia tried to make out his handsome face under the dim lighting. What if I died? She replied in a thin and unfeeling. What if I died? Olivia's almost inaudible mumble bounced off the walls of the bathroom, taking him by surprise. You won't die because you have me. Sure, he might have endless power and wealth one could wish for, and he had access to the top medical resources in the world. But no doctor would guarantee success in treating late-stage cancer. Ethan might appear omnipotent, holding power over the life and death of other beings. But he was a mere mortal at the end of the day and powerless to save her from the hands of the Grim Reaper. She chuckled. Ethan, since my family owed you a life, shall I atone for that with my death? Liv, I would have taken your life 2 years ago if I wanted to. I hate you, but I love you at the same time. That's why I'm keeping you alive to punish you. Did you just say you love me? She snorted. If that's true, you wouldn't have betrayed me. I told you I wanted to build a mega hospital with express access for the needy. So, you built a hospital worth a few billion and named a wing after Marina. She went on, I said I loved the ocean and picked a spot for our future home, but you ended up building Collington Cove for Marina. I wanted to name our child Connor, but you stole that name for your child with Marina. Ethan, do you call that love? The icy water trickled down his jaw. It was hard to see the emotions in his eyes because he was staring at the ground. He seemed to have a lot to say and opened his mouth. But nothing came out in the end. At first, she had wondered if he had a good reason for treating her in that manner. If not, given his character, he wouldn't have kept the passcode around. Upon second thought, she concluded that he was a conflicted man who could love and hate someone simultaneously. Perhaps, that was his way of taking revenge. He wanted to keep her alive, and he knew where it hurt most. Her eyes dimmed. Grabbing his collar, she hissed, Your love is revolting. Liv, do not anger me. That wouldn't do you any good. He unbuckled his belt, a move that set her alarm bells ringing. What do you want to do? Liv, you need to be punished for your mistake. He enunciated each word of his threat before tying her hands behind her. No, Ethan, you can't do this to me. Olivia panicked, but he was in no mood to listen. He swiftly tied her up and positioned her under the shower with the help of a towel, all while she struggled futilely. He had a unique way of tying the knot, which made it impossible to be undone. Her soft skin reddened under the rough handling. He lifted her chin in his fingers and mumbled into her ear, "Liv, I've seriously considered giving up on you." Despite the tenderness in his voice, he gave her the creeps. He went on, "But whenever I see other men near you, I want to tear them into pieces. Tell me, where else did Keith touch you?" His mania grew with his increasing tenderness. Reminded of Keith's car crash, she frantically cleared Keith's name. "I only ask that he pay extra attention to my dad at the hospital, that's all. I don't know why you said that about the apartment Dad's caretaker introduced that place to me. My landlord is abroad. Liv, I wanted to trust you, but he visited your place for a few days with stuff for you. Care to explain?" Tears filled her eyes as she suffocated under his craziness and possessiveness. "I couldn't get out of bed because I was sick for a few days. He was worried about my health and brought groceries to cook for me. Can't you tell that he's only stayed for 2 hours tops each time? He'll leave after cooking for me." He furrowed his brows and played with her cheeks. "Are you really sick?" Gently, Ethan loosened his grip on her body. "Liv, remember the punishment from today. Ethan, I'm begging you. Just come at me if you're angry. Don't you do anything to the Rogers family. Hey, untie me. Don't leave me alone here. I'm scared. Ethan, turn off the shower. I'm freezing, and I can't fall sick now." She saw him leaving and heard the click of the door shutting behind him. "Don't leave me alone. I'm wrong. You can torture me in any way you want, just don't leave me alone here. I'm feeling cold. Please let me out. I'll listen." "No, don't turn off the lights. I'm scared." There was a moment when he almost caved in after hearing her desperate pleas, but it was a fleeting feeling. He lazily changed into a new outfit and gracefully made his way to the lobby. There, Marina was searching around for him. She felt relieved when he showed up without Olivia by his side. "Ethan, where were you? I was looking high and low for you. I went to the restroom for a bit." "Why?" Ethan concealed his emotions well. She took his arm, but he silently freed himself from her grip and informed her, "I have another appointment at night. Get the driver to send you home after the event." "Okay. Don't drink too much, and don't get home too late," she reminded him while putting aside her displeasure. He had not agreed to register their marriage at the city hall that day. She had no choice but to put on a show as his understanding partner and soulmate to get her hands on that marriage certificate. After Ethan left, Marina wiped the smile off her face. His new outfit did not escape her keen eyes. Did he change for the engagement that he would attend later, or was it for Olivia? "Hello, out of my way, now." Everly suddenly strutted over in her heels and recklessly bumped into Marina. "Everly Hilton." That did not stop Everly. "Oh, my bad. I totally didn't notice you at all." Marina was speechless at Everly's jab. She wanted to bicker with Everly, but one of the guests at the scene dragged her back to the venue. Meanwhile, Everly was spamming Olivia with calls. She had wanted to get some gossip from Olivia, but her calls went unanswered. When she recalled how Ethan was on Keith and Olivia's heels, she felt uneasy and dialed Olivia's number once more. No one picked up, and in the heat of the moment, she cursed, "Ethan Miller, you! What the hell is going on? Are you looking for me? She jolted when she heard a cold male voice in her ear. She looked over and found Ethan smoking a cigarette under the tree. The flicker of the lighter danced between the shadows on his face. Everly's first reaction upon seeing Ethan was to cower. She might have been bold and outspoken at the event, but she was only bolstered by the effect of alcohol and Olivia's presence. She bore witness to Ethan's deep love for Olivia, and she knew that he could be deeply cruel toward outsiders. 2 years ago, she brought Olivia to a bar. When Ethan picked up Olivia, he shot Everly an icy look when Olivia wasn't looking and warned, "This is the last time." She was drenched in cold sweat when Ethan left, and she was haunted by the look in his eyes for a few nights in her dreams. Back to the present, Ethan shut the lighter and casually glanced at her, but it was enough to make her tense up. She gulped and said in a hushed voice, Mr. Miller, I'm looking for Liv. I'll excuse myself now." He shook off the cigarette ashes and gave her a look from the corner of his eye. "Let's chat." She knew it wasn't going to be a casual chat, and as a result, she was reluctant to engage with him. "Well, it's very late at night. How about we chat next time? Promise." She was ready to flee but turned around and bumped into Brent, whom she secretly described as Ethan's hitman. Brent said to her, "Please, Miss Hilton." Clothes to tears, she followed them to a nearby cafe. She couldn't stop shaking her legs after she was seated, causing the table to rattle as well. When Ethan reached for his cup of latte, he was momentarily surprised by the messed up latte art, all because of Everly's leg shaking. An awkward moment passed between them. She smiled politely at him and handed him the latte. "Mr. Miller, have a latte." Then, she immediately chastised herself in secret for falling into the habit of her line of work. The situation grew awkward. He put the latte aside and spoke to her, "I want to learn more about Olivia and Keith." Everly might have no idea about the brand of Ethan's mental disorder, but she knew about his possessiveness. Olivia's ex-husband couldn't let her go, judging from how he was prodding around about Olivia's life. Everly said bluntly, "Keith probably has feelings for Liv, but she isn't interested in him. Why else would I put in the effort to matchmake?" Hearing that, Ethan grew a little hostile. She recoiled and stole a careful glance at him as though she was meeting her boss. Mr. Miller, are you still interested in Liv?" She had overstepped the boundary. He dodged the question and rapped his knuckles on the table. "What base are they on?" "Oh, God, no. I swear they haven't done anything." Liv was upset after the divorce and didn't even step out of her place for a long time. "I had to talk her into coming to the event today. I don't know why Keith showed up, but he probably attended at Calvin's invitation. Liv had nothing to do with that." Ethan's suffocating silence and his unreadable eyes spooked Everly. She couldn't tell if he trusted her words, and she wondered how Olivia managed to live with a man who barely showed his emotions. "Well, I can swear on my life. If there was something between Liv and Keith, I'd be crushed by a car." He finally looked at her but remained expressionless. She gritted her teeth and swore, "I'd be forever alone if that happened." He seemed to think that wasn't brutal enough and added to the curse, "You'd be broke for life." Ethan was shrewd enough to hit her where it hurt. She clenched her jaw and said, "Fine. I'd be broke for life if that happened. Ethan finally took Everly's word for it. She wouldn't dare to lie to him. Was she sick before this? Yeah, I was going through a breakup, so I didn't pay her much attention. Thank God Keith was there to cook for her. She had wanted to tell Ethan the truth about Olivia. But she wouldn't know the consequences of doing so, given that Olivia couldn't even put a name to her relationship with Ethan at the moment. She decided to respect Olivia's wish. Ethan thought of Olivia's pale face and asked, why was she sick? Her heart skipped a beat as she fought to maintain a neutral expression under his keen gaze. It was just the flu. Just the flu. What else could it have been? Liv has always been healthy. That's true, Ethan concurred and concluded that Olivia might have sought pity through her show of weakness to avoid the divorce. After he received the answers from Everly, he dropped a remark before leaving. If you're interested, you may report to the Miller Property Corp Tower for work tomorrow. Her eyes lit up, knowing that the Miller Property Corp Tower was the property business of Miller Group. It'd be an instant status boost to work there. I can't thank you enough, Mr. Miller. You're the best. As Ethan walked away, she suddenly thought of something and ran up to him. Mr. Miller, have you come across Liv? I can't reach her on her phone. He turned around. What do you think? Everly scratched her head as she realized the pointlessness of her question. Ethan couldn't have seen Olivia because he was standing right in front of her. Oh, please ignore my dumb question. I was worried for her. He ignored her and proceeded to leave. After some thinking, Everly gathered up her courage and said to him, Mr. Miller, please be nice to Liv if you still love her. Don't hurt her anymore. She still cares about you. Although he cheated on Olivia, he seemed to have lingering feelings for her. Everly's only wish was for Olivia to live out her final days without regret. She felt more relieved after confirming that Ethan wasn't with Olivia. She assumed that Olivia might have put her phone on silent mode on her way home with Keith. Little did she know that her friend was imprisoned in a dark bathroom after Ethan turned off the lights and left. In the past, Olivia had nothing she feared in particular. However, after she almost drowned, she developed a trauma. She recalled watching Ethan leaving with Marina as she sank into the darkness. Her hands were on her belly, fearing that she might lose her baby. When she regained consciousness, she found herself in an operating theater with a sterile and blinding light right on top of her. There, she parted with her baby in pain. Since then, she had been scared of complete darkness and blinding lights. At that moment, the bathroom was filled with cold water. It wasn't enough to drown her, but it brought back memories from the day she fell into the water. In the bathroom, she continuously pleaded for help, hoping that someone would show up and free her. Alas, the soundproofing on the 38th floor drowned out her calls. The situation was eerily similar to the fateful day she. Tearing at the door that seemed shut forever, she lost hope. No matter how many times she got trapped, the ending was the same. Last time, she lost her baby. Would it be her turn this time to die? She remembered that Ethan had arrived half an hour late to her room from Marina's room. Hopeless, she demanded to know, why did you choose to save her? Because you know how to swim. The tears that had welled up in her eyes finally rolled down her cheek when she heard his answer. She was a pregnant woman, not an immortal. When she fell into the water, her legs were tangled in a web of fishing nets as well. He always thought she was indestructible. That was why he must have believed she could withstand the cold shower. She'd at most fall sick from the flu. He had no idea that an insignificant flu might be deadly for a cancer patient post-chemo. Thinking he was in control of everything in this world, he shall pay for his hubris this time. She was no longer concerned about a thing in this world except for Jeff. Like a crucified prisoner, she held on, head hung low, waiting for death to knock on her door. An eternity later, the door creaked open. She looked up and saw a tall figure appearing before her. Forcing herself to stay awake, she watched as he advanced and stood right in front of her. He questioned, "Liv, have you recognized your fault by now?" How was it her fault? She wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, but she was numb all over. What else could she say? She asked for this. She moved her lips like a dying fish. "Ethan, I was wrong." His lips curled into a smile in the darkness as he untied her in no time. What followed was her body hanging limply and her frigid remark. "Meeting you in this life was a mistake." When Brent switched on the lights, Ethan noticed the dirt on her wrists. She would rather injure her wrists in an attempt to free herself. It was different from her past self, who would whimper and complain about the prick of a needle. He lifted her in his arms. Strands of her dark hair were plastered across her lifeless face. She looked like a porcelain doll. He felt his chest tighten. He was confused by her weak condition. She was once strong enough to go swimming in the winter. How could a cold shower wear her out? "Olivia, stop acting." He stared at the lifeless body in his arms and touched her cheek. She was cold. Shaking, he screamed, "Call the doctor." A terrified Brent quickly called the family doctor. Ethan was distressed. He thought that half an hour of standing under the cold shower was enough punishment without pushing her to her limits. Why did this happen to her? He started taking off her clothes to administer first aid. Thankfully, she was still breathing, albeit her breaths were shallow. Ethan thought he was familiar with every nook and cranny of Olivia's body, but it was his first time seeing the scar on her lower abdomen. He was aware that she went under the knife without anesthesia due to her allergy. Waiting outside the operating theater, Ethan heard her screams of pain from within. He knew of the layers of her skin that were sutured and the amount of stitches she received on that day. Apart from the wound on the abdomen, Olivia suffered a new injury on her inner left arm. He suddenly recalled that she once visited the hospital on the day Marina made a scene. He thought Olivia merely suffered from some minor abrasions from that day, but he was shocked to discover the long scar. For someone who had a fear of pain, how did she manage to suffer in silence and brush it off later? Pursing his lips, he remembered Olivia's words before she blacked out. Her words felt like a stab to his heart. He changed her into pajamas and ramped up the heating in the room as he hugged her tightly. Soon, Brent arrived with Chris Atkins, and the two men instinctively backed out when they saw Ethan hugging Olivia. Ethan barked, "Get back! Check up on her!" "Of course, Mr. Miller." Chris was Ethan's family doctor. His presence was only required for minor issues, such as a bruise on the arm or a twisted ankle, because Olivia was always in good shape. He always joked that she was as fit as a fiddle, but after 2 years of not seeing her, he found her lying feebly on the bed, looking as pale as a ghost. Chris summed up the diagnosis, "Mr. Miller, based on my initial assessment, Mrs. Miller passed out because her body was too weak. She was exposed to the cold just now, so she had to be kept warm to avoid running a fever. The wounds on her wrists are superficial injuries, but they need to be treated carefully. She's weak." Olivia did appear quite unwell some time ago, but she should have recovered from the flu by now. "That's right. Her heart rate and pulse are below average, and she shows symptoms of heartburn too. I'm not an expert like my mentor, though. If you are free, you should send Mrs. Miller to the hospital for a detailed checkup." Then, Chris pulled out the needle that he had inserted for blood sampling. "I collected her blood to run some tests at the hospital. We'll need to find out if this is a viral or bacterial infection before we can administer the right treatment." Good. It was a torturous night for Olivia, who had a long dream. In the dream, she ran into a young man in a white shirt at the school field for the first time. It was love at first sight for her. They met for the second time when he saved her from drowning. She vividly remembered the excitement and joy that filled her body. In a moment of panic, she wrapped her arms around his neck. Her body sensed the muscular build of his, which caused her to blush in embarrassment. After that, they fell in love with each other and went into a relationship. When they were together, he doted on her like never before. It would have been nice for the dream to end at that point to save her from the ensuing suffering. Ethan watched as she frowned and mumbled in her sleep, "My baby. Ethan Miller, give me back my baby." She went on, "Ethan, I will give up my life for you. Please let me go." Ethan, every single remark was related to him and full of resentment. He reached out to take her hand and mumbled, "Liv, how can I free you when nobody could free me?" He was worried that by letting go, he'd lose his only connection to her. Her hand was scathing hot. Just like Chris had predicted, she was running a fever. Ethan put a fever plaster on her forehead and prepared some pills for her. But he was interrupted by Brent, who barged in without knocking. "Mr. Miller, we got the results of the blood test. All of Mrs. Miller's indices were lower than the average. The count of her red and white blood cells was especially low. Dr. Atkins said that she could not run a fever because her white blood cell count was at 2.3. A fever can be fatal for her. She needs a Neulasta injection right away." What did you say?" The pills in Ethan's hand were scattered all over the floor. To Ethan, Olivia was the symbol of vitality. Hence, he was flustered when Brent mentioned the potentially fatal condition that she was in. Brent went up to him and showed him the photos of the blood test results on the phone. Apart from the blood cell count, Olivia had a lower than average count for the other lymphatic cells. Ethan tried to grasp the consequences of his actions in full. He remembered her desperate screaming when he left her alone in the bathroom. Feeling disoriented, he replied, "Well, she's running a fever now. That's bad. We need to get her to the hospital. Get the car." Ethan recalled how Olivia had always shown up wrapped in a thick down jacket. That was rather unusual because she had only worn thin wool coats during the past winters to look good. It finally dawned on him. She wasn't faking her illness all this time. He clumsily wrapped her up in layers of clothing, seemingly worried that the cold air might seep in. She looked both pitiful and lovable due to her flushed cheeks. This was not her first fever, so why would it be particularly fatal for her? When he lifted her in his arms, his chest tightened because he realized that she lost a lot of weight. Ethan rushed Olivia to a private hospital in the dark of the night. Chris came over with the blood test results and opined, "Mr. Miller, I've had a better idea of her condition. Mrs. Miller needs a Neulasta injection first because she's in a critical condition." Ethan was holding on to the feverish Olivia from the moment he arrived at the hospital, and she was mumbling non-stop. With a hand on her belly, she extended the other hand to grasp at the air. "Ethan, save me! Save our baby!" She was hooked to an IV drip via the back of her right hand. So he had to stop her hand from moving around to prevent the needle from coming loose. She grabbed his hand desperately. Her contorted face finally relaxed a little as her anxiety melted into a relieved smile. "Sweetie, Mommy has found you at last. Are you blaming me because I didn't protect you well? Don't you worry, Mommy will be with you very soon." Upon hearing her feverish mumble, Ethan's frown deepened. He instructed, "Brent, get Connor here. Just tell them that I missed him." "Will do." Ethan only had faith in his efforts, not fate or luck. Still, he was spooked by the ominous words from her lips. It was true that he once hated Olivia because her family was connected to his sister's death. But he never thought Olivia would die. He arranged for Olivia to undergo a series of body check ups once she recovered from the fever. "Liv, you'll be fine. I won't let anything bad happen to you." However, the reality was often disappointing. Despite Chris' best efforts, he failed to make the fever go away. If the fever went on, Olivia would be headed toward death. "Loser! You can't even treat a fever." Enraged, Ethan grabbed Chris by the collar and hissed, "If anything happens to her, I'll withdraw my funding for your research team." Chris felt it unfair and argued, "Mr. Miller, we tried our best, but this is a very tricky situation. It appears that she has lost the will to live." "Rubbish." Ethan's eyes glimmered threateningly. Olivia was a tough kolja. And with Jeff still around, she wouldn't possibly give up on life just yet. Chris explained helplessly, "Mr. Miller, we're not trying to shun our responsibility here. Look, the brain is the command center of all our bodily functions. Many medical miracles happened because the patients exhibited an unyielding will to live. I'm sure you have experienced this before. Even if you are staring at death, there will be a miracle if you are determined to stay alive." Chris added, "But Mrs. Miller has given up on life. I'm afraid that." Ethan let go of Chris' collar and stumbled backward as Olivia's words echoed in his mind. "Ethan, I was wrong. Meeting you in this life was a mistake." She must have hated herself to the extent of giving up on her life. For the first time, Chris picked up a hint of fear on Ethan's face. After a long silence, Ethan finally questioned, "I went through her blood test results. Why are the indices lower than average? In situations like these, she's likely having..." Chris stopped himself from telling the truth. After a round of chemo, the patient's blood cell indices would fall under the average. Although he had not performed health checks for Olivia in the past 2 years, He highly doubted that she had cancer because she was healthy and young. Statistically, cancer patients were mostly middle-aged or older. Since the situation was tense, he didn't want to scare Ethan before there was a conclusive result. Likely having what? Nothing. Did you notice anything off with Mrs. Miller lately? She fell ill a while ago, and she suffered an arm injury. Oh, that could be the reason. Viral infections might affect the blood cell indices. She probably hadn't fully recovered when she took that cold shower. That might have worsened her condition. Ethan's heart ached when Chris made the assumptions. Chris noticed the change in Ethan's expression and added, "Mrs. Miller is immunocompromised now, so please take good care of her. She can't catch a cold and fall sick. I'll increase the dosage of her meds. The priority now is to get her fever down." Ethan's arms hung limply by his side as he muttered, "Okay." Back at Collington Cove, Marina was elated when Ethan requested to see Connor. She was not informed of the circumstances. The kid started bearing a close resemblance to his father, and she assumed that was the reason Ethan doted on him. The more Ethan was interested in Connor, the more it turned the situation in Marina's favor. She wasn't too worried about her place in Ethan's life, because she knew that he'd agree to register their marriage one day. Brent showed up at the patient room with Connor in his arms. Olivia was still in critical condition due to the fever. "Papa, I want a hug." Connor extended his chubby arms toward Ethan. Ethan took the kid and pointed at the feverish woman in bed. "Look. Who is that?" Connor's eyes lit up. "Mama. I want. Mama." Ethan gently placed Connor by Olivia's side. "Give her a hug." The kid was very smart. He wriggled his way into Olivia's arms without needing further instructions from his father. He then eagerly rested his little head on Olivia's inner elbow. Ethan wiped away the tears on Olivia's face and whispered in her ear, "Stop crying. Your baby is back." For a year or so, Olivia had been having the same nightmare, where a kid would cry and ask her for the reason she abandoned him. But she never got to see the face of the kid. This time around, she did not see any kid in her dream. Instead, she saw an endless ocean sprawling in front of her, and she waded deeper into the waters. She was in a state of tranquility. "Sweetie, you've waited for a long time. Mommy will be with you soon." "Mama." Suddenly, she heard a kid's voice from behind. The scenery in Olivia's dream changed from the ocean to a lovely sunflower field. A kid was running and giggling in the field. "Mama! Come get me!" "Oh, sweetie! My sweet child!" When she caught up with the kid, she pulled him into a hug. "I finally found you, my baby. I'm sorry. I will protect you well now." She turned the kid around and was astonished to see Connor's meaty face. It suddenly started pouring, and she had to run to a shelter with the kid. She was drenched by the rain. At that moment, she woke up from the dream, and the first thing she saw was the kid with a meaty face drooling from his lips. The drool almost fell onto her face, but Ethan was fast enough to wipe it away. When they exchanged glances, the air became a little awkward. After all, Ethan had sported an image of a haughty company president. Nobody had ever caught him in such an unbefitting act. Olivia chuckled after she noticed the unfamiliar environment. Is this a dream? Am I dead? Why would I dream of you both? He frowned and said frostily, Is that what you wish? Death. Yet. I'll be free after I die. She still thought she was in a dream and pinched Connor's chubby face, which was pleasant to the touch. Staying alive is tiring. Unable to understand the adult's conversation, Connor, who had developed a liking for Olivia, attempted to climb onto her. Drooling, he chanted, Mama! Mama, I want a hug. His childish talk instantly made her tear up. What did you call me? Ethan did not stop her. If she couldn't even stay alive for Jeff, perhaps she needed something new to keep her around. In fact, he was proven right. The kid had pulled her back from the brink of death. Mama! Kiss! Connor was at an age where he only knew a few simple words. Oddly, he had never called Marina Mama before. When they were together with the nanny, Marina got frustrated from teaching Connor how to address her. She even described Connor who didn't know how to address his mother at 1 year old. Connor, the sweet child, kept calling out to Olivia. She hugged Connor tightly as though he was the baby she had lost. Connor wrapped his arms around her neck and rubbed his face against it after he succeeded in hugging her after a few failed attempts prior. Tears trickled down her face. Oh, dear child, it'd be nice if you were mine. Connor stared at her with his innocent dark eyes and an adorable smile. Mama! His drool fell onto her neck. It was a little chilly and very real, which made her snap back into reality. She examined her surroundings and determined that she was in a hospital room that reeked of disinfectant. Ethan, standing by the bed without expression, exhibited a rare look of concern in his eyes. How are you doing? You okay? She realized that she was neither in a dream nor in hell. Her face fell upon recalling what he had done to her. Yeah, I'm alive. No thanks to you, of course. Ethan reached out to touch her forehead, but she dodged his move. Mr. Miller, please don't cross the line. I just wanted to know if you're still running a fever, he explained. To that, she flashed a caustic smile. Don't you think you're quite ridiculous? You were the one who tied me up under the cold shower. You're not a 3-year-old, you knew the consequences, so why did you act like you cared after I caught a fever? I didn't know you were weak. And I didn't know you'd be in critical condition after getting a fever. Her smile widened. Does that matter? Plus, we are divorced, but you keep acting like you are in love with me. That's sickening. She had no idea why Connor was in her room, but she knew that it wouldn't be wise to have him stay around her. Now that she was back to herself, she gently pulled Connor away from her. She then tossed the blanket aside and took out the 4-drip needle from the back of her hand. Droplets of blood trickled down the tiny wound, but she did not wince nor take a look at it. You, still feeble, she slowly got out of bed with a determined look in her eyes. Straightening her back, she told him, Ethan, you were the one who cheated and asked for a divorce. If you are still angry about your sister's death, I can make it up to you with my death. Without warning, she hopped up to the balcony nearby. They were on the 7th floor, and a fall might mean paralysis or death. Ethan, shocked by her extreme decision, yelled, Liv, calm down. Dressed in thin pajamas and barefooted, she stood there in the middle of the icy winds that ruffled the white curtains. Snowflakes landed and melted on her bloodless face. Her eyes were calm and devoid of any passion for life. Ethan, you might not know this, but I have loved you for many years. I fell in love with you from the first time we met. I remembered how you saved me from drowning. At that moment, I thought it'd be nice if I could marry you. When we started dating, I had the best time of my life. But I also started worrying every day. My life has been smooth sailing from the start, and I worried that one day, God might take away my blessings. I allowed myself to carefully savor your love for what I hoped would be a long time. But karma caught up to me soon. In 2 years, I went from heaven to hell and lost everything overnight. At first, I couldn't believe that you had cheated on me. I even thought it was a nightmare and that you might return to me one day. But I woke up to see you swimming toward Marina. You abandoned my baby and me. It took me a year to get everything back on track. There was no point crying over spilled milk, so I respected your decision. I thought that we would live separate lives after the divorce. But look at what you did to me. You threatened me and even hurt the people who cared about me. I do not know if you hate me or love me more. What I do know is that you will not stop if I am still alive. This thing between us will haunt me till death. It's a miserable life that I'm tired of. Ethan, you know I was once a cheerful and free spirit. After I agreed to marry you, I felt like I lost my wings. I sacrificed my freedom to stay by your side, but you still betrayed me in the end. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she continued. I don't blame you for falling in love with another. I guess I have to blame fate for where we are right now. If you are still stuck in a rut because of your sister's death, I will atone for it with my death. From now on, I would love to enjoy my freedom. We're even. Olivia stared at the pale moon in the sky, which was an apt reflection of her miserable and meaningless life. She no longer wished to be involved with Ethan and sought death. In death, there would be no love or hate. Perhaps, he might give up obsessing over her if she were dead. To her surprise, Ethan jumped and grabbed her wrist when she plunged from the balcony. Connor was disturbed by the scene and hurriedly hopped off the bed. He then jogged out of the room to look for Brent. Brent was smoking outside the room but put it out when he saw the kid stumbling toward him. He crouched and patiently asked, "Hey, Connor. Why are you out here?" Panicking, Connor explained, "Mama." Cry, he attempted to communicate with gestures, but Brent had no idea what he was trying to say. Brent lifted Connor into his arms. "I'll send you back to the room. It's cold out here. You shouldn't catch a cold." Meanwhile, Ethan was holding onto Olivia's hand. She looked at him emotionlessly. "Ethan, I thought you hated me. You'll get the revenge you wanted for your sister if I die." Half of his body was dangling out of the window in an attempt to hold onto her. The veins on his arms were bulging, and his temples were throbbing. He grabbed her tighter and hissed, "Olivia, I'll kill your dad if you try to kill yourself." She flashed him a half-smile. "He's in a coma anyway, and he might never wake up. Maybe death would be a relief for him. Who says he's never waking up? I tracked down Leo. If he leads the surgery, your dad will have an 80% chance of waking up. You were in the medical field, and you must have heard about his reputation." Finally, he caught a glimpse of change in her expression. He worked on coaxing her, "Sure, I hated you and your dad. But now, your family's done for, he's in a coma, and we're separated. I no longer resent you." A falling piece of a snowflake was caught in her long lashes. It looked like the brittle wings of butterflies. "Ethan, you have a new family, and I no longer want to be in this world. Please let me go. It'll be good for both of us." She knew very well that Ethan's ceasefire was only temporary. She added, "We'll never return to where we were." "Never." He stared at her bloodied wrist with fear in his face. It was rare to see him in such a state. She beamed. "Oh, looks like you're scared of me dying. Would that make you remember me forever? You cannot die without my permission. I'll hold you tight, and you can get yourself up with my help." He wanted to pull her up when Brent burst into the room. Brent almost lost his mind at the terrifying scene of Ethan dangerously hanging out of the window. More importantly, Olivia seemed dead set on dying, which complicated the rescue efforts. Brent quickly called the bodyguards on the ground to get them prepared. Then, he placed Cummer on the bed and joined the rescue. "Mrs. Miller, every hardship is only temporary. Just tell Mr. Miller what's going on, and I'm sure he will agree to help. Please don't throw away your life. You're still young with a long road ahead of you." With Brent's help, Ethan managed to straighten up as they dragged Olivia further up. However, she was determined to meet her fate. Rather than getting entangled with Ethan, she chose death. "Brent, it's the end of the road for me." Without warning, she let go of one of her hands, and they went back to square one. "Mrs. Miller." Ethan was bent over the window but did not let go. He held onto her hand, which was his only hope at the moment. He truly panicked. Even after multiple near-death experiences, he had never felt fear like this. He finally understood how much she meant to him. "Liv, if you die today, I will bankrupt the Rogers family. You know I am a man of my word." "Ethan, even when we're staring at death, you are still a self-centered jackass." She flashed him a wide smile. "You cannot threaten a person who wants to die. Nothing concerns me once I'm dead. Why must you choose death? If you had wanted to kill yourself, you wouldn't have waited until today. You would have done it a year ago or even at that time when your family went bankrupt. Liv, since when have you become so hopeless?" Ethan could not read her. In the past, she would fight her way through any challenges and never back down. Why did she see no way out except for death now? She had survived the darkest period of her life. With the wealth from the divorce settlement, she could have lived a carefree life doing whatever she wanted. "I can give you whatever you want." He finally gave in. "Ethan, did you think that I'd forgive you just because you coaxed me after how badly you hurt me? How can you go about with your life, pretending that nothing has ever happened? Do you always think you can control everything?" She added, "Let me be frank with you, you were never in control. It was Marina who pushed me into the water a year ago. She wanted to know who you'd save if we both fell into the water. I would never gamble with my child's life. Sure, I can swim, but have you thought that I was pregnant? Or that I was suffering from cramps? My legs were tangled in fishing nets, and I almost died with the baby that day. She raged. When I was tied up in the bathroom, I begged you to save me, just like the day I was pushed into the water. But you still thought that I would be fine. Ethan, I'm fed up with your arrogance, your volatile temper, and your contradictory nature. You cannot control my life, and you won't have control over my death. Then, she swung her body hard, and her fingers slid from his palm. No, Liv. It'd be great if I hadn't met you back then. You didn't know that you were a huge part of my youth. You were on my mind for many years just because you glanced at me once. But, it's time to put an end to it today. She forced a smile. Ethan, if reincarnation is a thing, I hope I won't come across you ever. With that, she freed her hand from his grasp. Goodbye, my youthful days. Ethan, let's never meet again, she. With steely determination, Olivia jumped off the 7th floor to sever her ties to Ethan. Unexpectedly, Ethan quickly kicked against the ledge to launch himself into the air and fell beside her. Her eyes widened at the sight. She wondered, is he insane? Among the flurry of snowflakes, she locked eyes with him. Glaring, he threw himself at her with all his might like a net. She had always failed to escape him, like a moth drawn to a flame. But the flames burned her, and she regretted getting close. Ethan would not stop even after he shattered her heart. He would continue to torment and oppress her. Ethan hugged her tight, and the two intertwined bodies descended from the air at great speed. On the ground, Kelvin quickly moved a few inflatable cushions from a nearby event with the help of the bodyguards, and they managed to set it up at the last minute. With a loud thud, Ethan and Olivia crashed into the inflatable cushions before rolling onto the ground. The cushions buffered their fall, and they were free from any injuries. Seeing that, Brent let out a relieved sigh from the 7th floor. He felt thankful that he came prepared and thus averted a tragedy. Meanwhile, Kelvin and the bodyguards were flabbergasted. They couldn't bear the responsibility if something had happened to Ethan. Ethan rolled off the cushion and hit the floor hard. Despite frowning from the pain, he never made a sound. He hugged Olivia tightly in his arms to protect her from getting hurt. Even so, the first thing she did when she climbed up was to slap him across the face. Ethan Miller! How dare you take away my right to die? I thought you hated me. You should be happy to see me dead. Ignoring the pain from his back, he grabbed her tiny wrist with raging eyes. Like a provoked beast, he growled, because death is an escape. I want you to live out the rest of your life in shame and hopelessness to make up for my sister's death. She sniffled and felt chills spread across her body. Perhaps it was from the outdoor temperature or Ethan's cruelty. In no time, he stood up and towered over her. Even the dim light from the street lamp failed to add warmth to his visage. His tensed jaw and features that were a blur in the snow flurry made him appear grimmer. There was a certain regal air about him that made her feel like a peasant at his feet. Panic set in as she felt that she was not in control anymore. Given the disparity between their status and power, and the fact that she had provoked him earlier, he might give her a harder time from now on. The hem of his coat fluttered in the cold winds as he lifted her chin. Olivia Fordham, this is an exception. If you try to kill yourself again, I'll ensure the people around you will join you in the afterlife. Keith Rogers, Everly Hilton, Jeff Fordham. You name it. He tightened his grip on her chin, almost making her cry from the pain. His gaze was cold. Olivia Fordham, don't ever think of dying before you fully atone for your sins. When he reached out, her first reaction was to run. Ethan snickered as he took Olivia by the wrist and scooped her into his arms. He was a little rough with her because of his anger, and he pinned her legs against his body with his arms. She tried to free herself but withdrew her hands when her fingers accidentally brushed against his neck. The warmth of his body lingered on her fingertips. Ethan, let go of me. She struggled with all her might, but it was futile. Giving up, she stayed in his arms as he walked through the snow linen path. The snow crunched underneath his boots during the walk to her room. He did not say a word, letting the silence hang over them. The heating in the room warmed up her freezing body. Unaware of the events, Connor stumbled toward her as though he wanted a hug. She reflexively reached out to hug him when she saw the tears and snot on his face. However, Ethan lifted the poor kid by the collar and instructed his men icily, "Send Connor home." Got it. Brent was relieved when he confirmed that Olivia was unhurt. Chris came by and performed a checkup before hooking her to an 4 drip. He advised her, "Your white blood cell count is very low. Please do not overexert your body. Or else, no one can save your life the next time." She merely grunted as she stared emptily at the ceiling like a rag doll. Now that Ethan had trapped her and taken away chance at dying, what more could she do? Yet, I understood. You'd better. Ethan finally looked away from her and strode out of her room. Head Chris cautiously followed the hostile Ethan out and almost bumped into him when Ethan abruptly stopped in his tracks. Ethan turned around with a scowl and hissed, "Find out the reason behind her low white blood cell count." He sensed that something was off from the chain of events earlier. Olivia, who had always been fit, had suffered from a low white blood cell count after a fever. Moreover, she jumped from the 7th floor without hesitation. When he recalled her feeble condition and fainting spells, he believed that the issue was more complicated than it seemed. Chris nodded. "Sure, Mr. Miller. We'll get her a full checkup tomorrow. You don't have to worry too much. She hasn't done any check UPS in the last 2 years, but there's a low chance of her developing chronic diseases based on her past health records. That better be it." Chris gave Ethan a respectful nod when the latter left the hospital. He was careful not to further anger Ethan at such a sensitive time. Then, he rushed back to his office, where he printed the list of check UPS that Olivia had to undergo. That night, Olivia's fever finally went away. A nurse came in early in the morning to wake her up. "Miss Fordham, it's time for a checkup." That immediately pulled her out of her groggy state. "What?" The nurse patiently explained, "Miss Fordham, you must undergo some advanced check UPS." That sent a chill down her spine. She wondered if Ethan had picked up any clues on her condition. Although Chris only got a few hours of sleep, he showed up looking fresh. Since Ethan wasn't around, he told Olivia, "Mrs. Miller, your husband really cares about you. Look at how he arranged all these check UPS for you." Olivia wanted to scoff at Chris' assumption. Ethan only wanted her to undergo the check UPS to keep her healthy and to suffer from his punishments. She was somewhat curious about Ethan's expression if he knew she had stomach cancer. Anyway, she did not have much of a choice at the moment. She croaked, "Yeah, let's do it." There was a dizzying amount of check ups to be completed. Endoscopy wasn't on the list because the procedure was more complicated. The patient would need to take laxatives after midnight to clear the bowels and go under anesthesia. Olivia wasn't in the condition to be put through the bowel prep. On top of that, she had stuck to a regular daily routine ever since marrying Ethan. Chris assumed that her digestive system was healthy and did not request an endoscopy. The results of the checkup were expedited. Olivia was taking some soup after starving for the entire morning when Ethan showed up at the door. Standing tall, he looked as indifferent as usual. Judging from his attire that commanded authority, a pressed suit and a black and white striped tie, he must have rushed over from work. She had bought him the tie, and the visual reminder brought back sweet memories from long ago. However, after 2 years, there was nothing left between them other than pain. He stared at her pale face, wondering why she always presented herself in a feeble condition. Was there something wrong with her body? "Mr. Miller, don't worry. I will not die. I will not think of killing myself too." She broke the silence and took another mouthful of soup. The back of her hand was all swollen from the injection earlier. She appeared rather pitiful and fragile. Ethan was no longer angry after a night away. "Are the results out yet?" "No." At the mention of the results, she put her spoon down and looked into his eyes. "If something's wrong with me, will you?" He cut her off. "What will go wrong?" "Well, if I caught a terminal disease, for example." She stared straight at him. "Will you consider sparing me?" His heart sank when he heard the question. Taking a seat on the couch, he straightened his back and started rubbing the area between his left thumb and index finger. His tone remained icy. "Tell me about that terminal disease." Although she escaped the endoscopy, she did a CT scan, which might not help determine the type of tumor. However, the CT scan would reveal gastric wall thickening. If the tumor was abnormally large, it might affect nearby tissues and structures. For example, it might affect the left liver lobe. Even the swollen lymph nodes might betray her condition. Knowing that the results would expose her condition in some way, she looked straight at him. Then, they heard a knock. "Come in." Chris entered with her results in his hand. Seeing that, Olivia stopped drinking her soup. "Looks like the results are in." She stared at Ethan, her palms sweaty from the nervousness. She was curious to see Ethan's reaction to the news of her cancer. Would he feel glad about her impending death, or would he feel a little sad for her? Somehow, the anticipation of his reaction gave some meaning to her upcoming death. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.